Hi, I'm Janine.
Hi, I'm Brian.
Welcome to Vesper Meadow.
In part 2, Science, we're going to learn ways that scientists are learning about the Oregon Vesper Sparrow, including where they are, where they're going, and if they are surviving.
So here at Vesper Meadow, we're really excited to collaborate with the Klamath Bird Observatory. They do great bird research in the region, and they have a project specifically looking at Vesper Sparrow to better understand why they're in steep decline. And this is a concerted effort together with other groups that are also doing similar efforts throughout their range, throughout Oregon and Washington.
I'm Jamie Stevens. I'm the science director at Klamath Bird Observatory. Klamath Bird Observatory advances bird and habitat conservation through science, education, and partnerships. We don't know why the Oregon Vesper Sparrow has declined so dramatically and why the population's so small, so we're trying to study what the cause is so that our conservation actions can be very targeted in order to reverse that decline. So if you think about what might be causing a bird to decline, we think about whether or not it's breeding successfully. Does it have habitat where it can have a nest and have eggs that hatch? And then there's another period after those young hatch, and that's the fledgling period. Are they surviving when they're young on those breeding grounds? And then we have the migration. And so the Oregon Vesper Sparrow is a short distance migrant, so it faces different obstacles during its migration. And then it has to spend the winter somewhere completely different. So when we're studying a bird like the Oregon Vesper Sparrow, we need to understand all those different pieces of its full annual cycle to understand what might be causing these declines.
So together with the Klamath Bird Observatory, we're partnering to study Oregon Vesper Sparrow in a number of different ways. So far, I think there's 5 ways. So last summer here at Vesper Meadow, we did spot mapping, which I'll show you in a minute, involves mapping the behaviors of birds throughout the meadow, and that helped us detect how many territories, how many nests are in the meadow. Here's an example of a data sheet from spot mapping, one of the multiple types of protocols we have to study Vesper Sparrow at Vesper Meadow. And so this is actually the master data sheet that has all the data from 10 weeks of summer surveys. So each week is indicated by a letter, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. And the different symbols on here indicate different birds' behaviors. So you can see this open area is the meadow, we have the edge of the forest here, and birds doing different things. So on the second week, week B, there was a bird seen flying in this direction about this far away from the water channel. We have places where, say in week F, there was a bird that was singing, and so there's a circle around it. It sang and then it moved. We have interactions between birds where they're singing to each other. We have places with all these little lines where it shows 2 birds actually kind of had an aggressive encounter, almost like fighting. And that's actually really helpful to see because then we know that there's probably 2 different territories here. They were defending their territories, and so we can guess, if we don't at least see eggs or nests, that there were 2 different nest sites in this one area. And so from the 10 weeks of surveys at Vesper Meadow in 2019, we found that there were about 40 nest sites or 40 territories around the entire edge of the meadow. A second way is by color banding. I'll show you those data sheets in a second here. So little tiny bands with colors, different colors, are put on the bird's ankle, and that helps to detect what birds they are with your binoculars. You don't need to capture them again. So you can see where individual birds go, what they're doing, what they're eating.
So right here, you might be wondering, how do people put those little bands and backpacks on birds?
So being a field biologist is a lot of fun. It's also full of a lot of challenges. One of the fun things about studying birds is that you're up at sunrise. They're the most active during the first 3 to 4 hours of the morning. One of the things we do is we put these bands around their legs. And so in order to put bands on their legs, we have to capture the bird, and we do that by deploying mist nets, and we put them up in the birds, and then we use an audio lure. So we actually play the bird's song such that it thinks there's an intruder in its territory. And because of that, the males will come in to see what's going on and get captured in the net. And after we capture the bird in the net, it's all very safe. Bird safety is at the forefront of what we do. We just gently retrieve it from the net, and then we put bands on its legs. One of those has a unique identifier. It's a metal band that has a unique number on it, and then we also put on 3 different color bands such that we can identify that individual again without having to recapture it.
A third way is by actually detecting their travel with GPS. So earlier this summer in 2020, scientists with the Klamath Bird Observatory put miniature backpacks with GPSs on Vesper sparrows, just a few Vesper sparrows, kind of with like little backpack straps around their arms, and it's super light, barely detectable by the bird, and that records the track of the bird's migration south and back north again here. So looking at where they're going is really important. Another new way that we're looking at Vesper sparrows here at Vesper Meadow is with radio technology. So little tiny radio tags will be put on Vesper sparrows next summer and detected by this huge MOTUS tower, which we'll show you here in a second as well. And that will help detect where chicks, little fledglings, start flying around in the meadow in the spring and summer, and when they come back again in the spring. This is the first MOTUS tower in Oregon, and you can see it's made up of multiple antennas. It will be able to detect radio tags on birds throughout the meadow, and what's pretty neat is that it will be able to detect radio tags that scientists anywhere in North America have tagged. The tower itself is actually made up of 6 different antennae. So you can see here we have 6 different cables coming in, one off of each of those antennae on the tower. And it goes, that information that comes in from the antenna goes directly into this computer here and is recorded in this computer and then sent periodically throughout the day to a web server, and that data is then available on a website, motus.org.
MOTUS stations receive and upload data from little transmitters that can be put onto birds. But they can also be put on other animals like dragonflies and even on bats. There are MOTUS stations all over the world. But the first MOTUS station to be put up in Oregon is at Vesper Meadow.
And so we're going to be using this MOTUS technology to study that component of the annual cycle of the young birds, what they do on the breeding site before they leave for migration. And so we'll start to understand how the birds are moving around, how they're spending their time, and of course, most importantly, our question is if they're surviving.
And then another ongoing study that's been done at our neighboring meadow at Lily Glen is nest searching. And so the most important part of the life cycle, of course, is having more babies so that the population can persist or keep growing. And so what that involves is just some field work using binoculars, detecting birds, looking for mother birds that might be carrying food, like little grubs, to the nests, and then very carefully respecting the nest, making sure no predators are around, and approaching the nest and making sure not to disturb it too much, checking out the number of eggs, and then checking up on it periodically to see if the eggs survive and become chicks, if the chicks survive and are able to fledge the nest.
Let's review the 5 methods of monitoring. Spot mapping is where people use their eyes and ears to record where, when, and how birds are active. Color banding allows us to see the individual bird's behaviors. With GPS, birds are captured, once to attach a data collector and then a second time to retrieve that data. With the MOTUS station, the birds are captured once, and each time they fly near the MOTUS station, their activities are automatically recorded. And with nest searching, we again use our eyes and binoculars to find and record nest information. All of these ways help us to understand where, when, and how the birds behave, so we can do better to protect the dwindling population. In the third and final video, we'll learn how anyone can help record scientific data, or help in efforts to restore the lands where the Oregon Vesper Sparrows build nests and raise their young.